Hey everyone, I'm Dilshan and welcome back to the Lazy but Smart Sinhala video tutorial series. Episode 2, Introducing Yourself. Let's quickly recap the main points that you saw in the previous episode. You learned that the Sinhala word for I was mama, informal you was oya, and the one word that is used for both he or she was ea. I also showed you an easy way to ask how are you in Sinhala, which was kohumada. You then saw another way of asking how are you, this time using a pronoun, which was oya kohumada. And in section 3, we learned how to respond to kohumada by giving the equivalent of I am fine, which was to say honding innawa, and we also learned to say it as mama honding innawa. And we ended the episode by learning the traditional formal greeting in Sinhala, which was Ayubowan, to which the correct response is also Ayubowan. Now here's what we'll look at during this episode. We will start with some basic possessives such as my, your, his and her. We'll then use this knowledge to learn two simple ways you can introduce yourself, which is to say the equivalent of my name is and I am. We'll continue to use the possessives to ask someone's name by using the phrase what is your name? And in the last section, I'll teach you how to say thank you so that using what you learned in episode 1, you can now reply more politely by saying, I'm fine, thank you. And by the way, I've made one change from the format of the last episode. You might remember that we finished the episode by looking at a sample dialogue using the phrases we learned, and we also answered some quick questions on the related material. I'll still keep doing it, but starting from this episode, I've decided to move these two sections to a separate video, for which I'll give you the link at the end of the episode. Alright, let's start. Section 1, Possessives of Pronouns. You know from the previous episode that oya is informal you. The possessive form of this pronoun, which is your, is very simple to formulate in Sinhala. All we do is we add an indicator that we pronounce as ge, and you've got the word oyage, which means your. It's as simple as that. Ge is what we use in Sinhala as the possessive indicator for living things. We can use ge to indicate the possessive form of any person or animal. In future episodes, when we want to say words like the man's or the dog's, we'll also be using this indicator ge. This, however, does not apply to non-living objects, and we'll cover this in a later episode. Similarly, you know that he or she is ea, and to say his or her, we once again add the indicator ge to create the word eage. Let's try this with the name of a person. How will we say Pat's, meaning that something belongs to Pat? We take the name Pat, we add the indicator ge to make the word Patge. Now let's see how we say my. Pay attention since this sort of diverts from the rule. Going by what we just saw, it would be understandable if you took the word mama, add the indicator ge and said mamage. But it's wrong. It's close, but the correct word is mage. Mage. Essentially, we've removed the second m in mama. So let's summarize. My is mage, informal yo is oyage, his or her is eage, and Pat's is patge. Section 2, Introducing Yourself. Method 1, Learning to say my name is. You can use your own name for this, but I'm going to continue using the name Pat. Let's look at how we can say my name is Pat. The singular word for name is nama. Nama. It's very close to the word mama, which as you remember means I. Now regarding sentence structure, we saw a tip in episode 1 where I told you that in Sinhala, the equivalent expressions for are, am and is are not used very often. This is one more of those instances when we don't need to use is. So all we need to do to say my name is Pat is to add the name at the end of these two words to give us the sentence Mage nama Pat. Mage nama Pat. This literally reads my name Pat. Similarly, your name is Pat will be Oyage nama Pat, and his or her name is Pat will be Eage nama Pat. Method 2, Learning to say I am. This is an even easier way to introduce yourself. In episode 1, we saw that when we wanted to say I am fine, we said Mama honding innawa, where it literally read as I fine. We didn't need to use an equivalent for the word am. Similarly, when we say I am Pat, we don't need to use an equivalent for am, and we just say it as Mama Pat. Literally, this reads as I Pat. In the same way, you are Pat is Oya Pat, and he or she is Pat is Ea Pat. Section 3. Asking someone's name. Learning to ask what is your name. In the previous section, when we wanted to say how are you, we said Oya kohomada. Notice that this literally reads you how. In the same way, in order to ask what is your name, we need to construct a sentence that literally reads your name what. We already know from section 2 that your name is Oyage nama, so all you need to know is the word for what. And that word is mokakda. Mokakda. You don't need to force yourself to remember this word since we'll be using it very often. Notice that it has the same soft D ending that we saw in kohomada. So the word for what is mokakda. So to ask what is your name, we just join these words to ask Oyage nama mokakda. Similarly, what is his or her name is Eage nama mokakda, which literally reads his or her name what. Section 4. Saying thank you. The word for thank you in Sinhala is istuti. Istuti. Try not to make the mistake of pronouncing it as istuti because of the letters is, which in English we pronounce as is. Instead, the word is pronounced as istuti. Now, in episode 1, when someone greeted us with kohomada, we learned 2 ways of saying I am fine. One was mama honding innawa, and the other was just honding innawa. Now that we know how to say thank you, we can now reply more politely by saying the equivalent of I'm fine, thank you, which is mama honding innawa istuti or honding innawa istuti. And that's it for today. Let's recap what you have learned at the end of this episode. You now know that the Sinhala word for mai is mage, informal yo is oyage, and that we use one word to say his or her, and that word is eage. We additionally saw an example using the name of a person and learned that Pats would be patge. In section 2, we learned how to introduce ourselves by first saying my name is Pat, which was mage nama Pat. We additionally learned that your name is Pat was Oyage nama Pat, and his or her name is Pat was Eage nama Pat. Afterwards, I showed you a second way of introducing yourself, which was the equivalent of saying I am Pat, and this was Mama Pat. We then also saw that you are Pat is Oya Pat, and he or she is Pat is Ea Pat. In section 3, we learned how to ask what is your name, which was Oyage nama mokakda. In addition to that, we also learned to ask about someone else's name by asking what is his or her name, which was Eage nama mokakda. We ended the episode by learning how to say thank you in Sinhala, which was istuti, and we used this word to say I am fine, thank you, which was either mama honding innawa istuti or just honding innawa istuti. In the next episode, we'll cover nationality. I'll show you how to ask someone which country they're from, and I'll also show you 2 easy ways of telling someone which country you're from. We'll finish up when I show you a simple way to form questions in Sinhala. To download a free video transcript of this episode in PDF format, go to the Lazy But Smart Sinhala blog by clicking on the link mentioned in the description box. My name is Dilshan, or maybe I should say Mage nama Dilshan, and I'll talk to you on the next episode.